Welcome to the Pro Aging Podcast. I'm Steve Gurney, founder of the Positive Aging Community. We're thrilled to have you join us for interactive discussions with pioneers and thought leaders on a wide variety of topics related to aging and longevity. These insightful discussions and the Positive Aging Sourcebook are brought to you thanks to the support from our Positive Aging Community champions. Visit proaging.com to connect with them and discover hundreds of valuable other resources. We're excited to have you with us today, so let's jump into an engaging Positive Aging live and interactive discussion. I am once again very excited to have a panel of 3 aging life care managers. And if you're not familiar with the profession of aging life care, you have come to the right place, because you are going to learn anything and everything that you need to know about this profession. But also, we're going to get to brainstorm with some of these professionals that are seeing a variety of different clients and situations in their daily work. So these are always a great place to get some perspective that can help you through your aging, through your challenges, whether they be for yourself or for your loved ones. So thank you all for joining us today for this discussion. I'm really excited to dive into it. But before we dive into the discussion, let's get to know the 3 of you. So I think the order that I'm going is I'm going to start with Mindy, and then we're going to go to Teresa, and then we're going to meet Jennifer. But Mindy, tell us a little bit about your background and the practice that you're a part of.
Yes, so my name is Mindy. I am a team director with ElderTree Care Management. We are based out of Northern Virginia, and I started my career as a social worker. Actually started working with children because you wouldn't have been able to tell me that I was going to do anything different until I actually started working with the aging population. Started in a skilled nursing facility as a social worker, transitioned to home health care, and then ultimately ended up at ElderTree in the care management realm. So definitely wasn't what I thought, but I really could not envision myself doing anything else at this point in my life. So
I love it. And I tell you, I've done so many of these discussions, and I can't tell you how many folks in your profession have made the transition from working with children, young adults to older adults. So that's great. Let's see, Teresa, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Teresa Boring. I'm the Director of Care Management at Aging Well Eldercare, and part owner as well. And I actually got my education also in social work, but I had a specialization my second year, specifically in aging. It was a really tailored program that gave us an extra day of seminar, extra internship, all geared towards aging and disability. And so right out of that, I was able to start doing care management work, and I began working with the same company I work with now. At the time, we were called Deborah Levy Eldercare Associates. Started out as an associate care manager and helped start our Debbie's Angels program, and kind of worked my way up. And I've loved every second of it, and loved the work that we do in care management. And I feel like I landed my dream job right out of grad school. This kind of work is so holistic and just fantastic for most professionals, but especially for social workers who want to have a big impact.
I love it. Okay. And then Jennifer, let's get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm Jennifer Szakaly. I own Caregiving Corner. I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and Caregiving Corner, let's see, started it 20 years ago, and it was just me in the beginning, and I've grown it to a 21-person team. And yeah, very excited. I went to graduate school for a master's in gerontology, so I knew I was going to work in this space in some capacity, but then kind of stumbled upon the profession of care management, and it just really spoke to me as such a problem-solving and rewarding profession to get into. So I've loved every minute of it. It's been great.
And I love it. All right. And what's interesting folks, if this is the first one of these panels that you've tuned into, all three of these practices are what I'd refer to as rather large. They're not one or two person shop, and but there are all different shapes and sizes of aging life care practices. But no, this is great. Well, Jennifer, since I'm talking to you right now, especially for those that may be tuning into this that have never heard of aging life care and their friend told them to tune into this, tell us a little bit about what profession is. And while you're doing that, I'm going to drop the definition of aginglifecare.org onto the screen as well.
Sure. Yeah, so the profession, I think there's a misconception that the profession of care management is new. And it's not. It's really been around since the 80s and actually before. And it's just a small profession. And so our tagline, I think, encapsulates the variety of what we do pretty well. It's that we are the experts in aging well. And so we are the professionals that come alongside an older adult as they are aging, and we identify what their goals are, and we essentially build a plan to help them get from where they are today to whatever their goals for aging are, or as close to that goal as we possibly can. And then we work the plan. We're there with them as things change and as their different things come up with their health or different family dynamics change, and we're able to help people pivot and hopefully stay out of emergency mode and focus on the positive parts of aging, which there are a lot of.
I love it. Mindy, Teresa, anything related to the profession that you'd like to share with folks?
Yeah, I will actually kind of give credit to my colleague for this analogy, but I'm kind of a visual person. So for me, when I'm speaking with somebody who may not be completely familiar with what aging life care management is, I say, imagine an orchestra, right? You've got lots of different instruments. You've got doctors and caregivers, families, friends, housing options, medications, and we are the conductors. If all of those pieces aren't working together, it could be extremely chaotic, right? So our goal is to come in, make sure everyone's working together in rhythm with one singular focus of being like quality of life and safety and happiness. So
That's
I like
great.
that analogy.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
Teresa, your practice, I know from knowing your team for many years. What's the analogy that you all use?
We're like wedding planners for aging well. And so, yeah, it's the analogy of like, everyone that has a wedding, there's similar parts to it and kind of concepts that are the same, but all the details are different. And so while someone who's aging might have, maybe they had a stroke and maybe they had a friend who had a stroke, doesn't mean their situation is going to be exactly the same. They had one part of their aging experience that was similar, and then everything else could be different. And so we're the experts in kind of navigating all those pieces and the differences between the two.
One reason I like all the analogies, and Mindy, it's the first time I've ever heard conductor. I'm gonna borrow that. I've had conductor, quarterback, wingman, wedding planner. I'm waiting for the next one, but the cool thing about the wedding planner analogy is you can plan your own wedding. You don't need a aging life care manager. You can do this on your own. But when you hire a wedding planner, you now have a partner who's has a different perspective and is educated and has gone down the road of planning a wedding before. And it makes it a lot more seamless and makes you feel like you're not on this journey all by yourself. So this is a great definition. That's fantastic. Now, before we dive into our discussion, I want to do one thing, and that's I want to take everybody to the aginglifecare.org website. And I want to just give a really quick demo here that illustrates. So today we've got three practices that are based in North Carolina, Maryland, and Virginia and DC. Okay. But when you go to aginglifecare.org, you can click on this button, find an aging life care expert, and you can scroll down and you can drop in your zip code or do an advanced search and what have you. But let's see, I've got a zip code in here that I think is a Maryland zip code, and it will pull up um, all the aging life care management member association members that are in your region. And actually, I'm gonna share with y'all that because the first question that came in, actually this week we had a solo aging club meeting, and I had to get off at a specific time because I was going to be on a phone meeting with an aging life care manager that my wife was interviewing for her mom and dad in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And so I went on the Aging Life Care website. I found a care manager. We set up the appointment, and I am happy to report that I had a meeting with my wife and her sister with the Aging Life Care manager. We got to know them, and then she went to go meet with my mother and father-in-law, and our fingers were crossed. They got along, and my mother and father-in-law are very excited to have to begin working with this care manager to just help navigate the various things for them to live a purposeful life. So thank you for asking that question. That's my personal update. And right now it's going pretty well. But the main reason that we're excited to have her in our corner is none of our family members live down there in Hilton Head. And we had some crisis situations where the care manager can now step in and help us. So, um, okay. Oh, David said, can you show that life care search page again? Okay, David, here, let me, it's at aginglifecare.org. And I believe, do any of you know how many members there are in uh, the association now?
It's a good question, Steve.
I know
Yeah.
there's definitely hundreds. So David and everybody, again, you've got a zip code search here. You can click on advanced search where you can search somebody by name or by their city, and then and actually here it's probably in the let's see if this works. What I did the other day was I just put in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and there, a couple of care managers popped up. And what you'll see again, folks, is that if you're in a more rural location, you may have less people that pop up. You may need to expand that search. Whereas in a metro location, there may be dozens. Okay.
And
Um,
I believe that there's over 2,000. I think we've held
Mhm.
steady over 2,000 members for a number of years now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to just go back around our and meet our care managers, and they're just going to share some perspectives, some tips, some case studies, some different ideas for us to think about. And folks, while they're chatting, throw in any questions, comments, observations that you might have, and we'll make sure that we get to those. So I'm gonna go back to you, Mindy. Mindy, what's on your mind these days? What would you like to share with our audience?
So a big focus of what we do in aging life care management is focusing on quality of life for people. We often talk about quality of life as things, safety, medical needs, resources, but really it looks different for everybody. So I'd really like to kind of ask the question to people, like, what do you think of an older adult living well? What does that look like? Is it independence? Is it connection? Is it feeling heard? Is it staying at home for as long as possible? What does that mean? Because every day that is one of our focus when we're dealing with our clients is, what does quality of life look like for you, and how can we help support that while also keeping you safe and happy and healthy?
I like that. Mindy, hey folks, if you want to participate in this would be great. I'd love to sort of see what folks think. Like what can you in chat articulate what means quality of life either to you, or if you're tuned in to this discussion today for a family member or a client, what do you think defines quality of life for folks? The but and while we're waiting for somebody to respond there, Mindy, share with us a little bit about how you go about gathering that information and determining it for your clients.
Well, we get to know our clients on an extremely personal level. And so it's, taking the time, during our initial visits, it's really doing a deep dive into their background, into their history. What are things that bring them joy, historically throughout their life, even, if somebody is, in the various stages of dementia, things that bring them joy, we can still bring those into their world. We have art therapists, we have music therapists. So it's really getting to know the clients, what their needs are, what they like, and then trying to build a plan around that. Sometimes it's harder than others, right? Sometimes quality of life means staying at home, and sometimes staying at home isn't a reality in that particular situation. But then what other aspects of life bring them joy and happiness that we can then bring into the next phase, wherever that might lead them.
So Irene says, independence is key for my quality of life. When it becomes too much for me, then I want to go someplace to go. I want to go someplace for care. Um, Irene, boy, I really appreciate your open-mindedness to that, because a lot of times it's that that is a roadblock. Uh, Maybe I'll share personally with my mother and father-in-law. My They were hesitant to meet with the aging life care manager, but in our initial conversation, one of the things that I shared with the care manager, that my mother-in-law was a realtor and she loved going to open houses and things like that. And she was like, our care manager, a lot of times we go on little field trips and maybe we go check out some open houses. And so my wife suggested that. And then she said, oh, that's nice, but I really would like to get back to my water aerobics class because she hasn't gone to that. My father-in-law doesn't want to take it to her. And so that was a way for her to have quality of life.
And making those connections, right? There's almost always a connection to be made somewhere with somebody, whether it's where you're from or it's your background, or my husband's in the military, well, I was in the military. And just making those connections can help, especially initially when people are a little hesitant,
Mhm.
because a lot of the times as care managers, unfortunately, while we would like to be Smokey the Bear and prevent the forest fires, a lot of the times we're coming in when it's a 5 alarm blaze. And so we're stepping in to help people at some of the most challenging times in their lives, when they feel like they're losing autonomy and they're losing that independence. And so I always tell them, I'm not going to do anything for you that you can do for yourself, right? If you can do it for yourself, I want you to continue to do that. I'm just here to help on the back end, maybe pick up some pieces and do some of those, auxiliary tasks that maybe is a little bit harder for you to do on your own.
Okay. All right. I love this because once we start talking, some really good questions come in. And so we're going to definitely get to Teresa and Jennifer's thoughts, but I'd love all three of you to sort of let's dive down the rabbit hole that Irene opened, because she basically said, hey, look, if I'm not independent anymore, I'm open to going to a place where people could care for me. And then Michelle followed up and says, I would love to know specifically how the organizations help families and their older loved ones find the best fit when it comes to local senior living communities like independent assisted living or memory care. So maybe let's all three of us kind of jump in on this. Is that when a family comes to you thinking that leaving the home is going to be the best option, what are some of the conversations and how do we go about that?
Yeah, I'll pick up with that. This is something that kind of builds off of what Mindy was talking about earlier. I think the really intimate information that we have about clients and understanding what their preferences are and how they function and what they're wanting to get out of the rest of the years that they have in front of them really helps us as aging life care managers look at the landscape of available communities. We're clinically looking at their situation to figure out what levels of care they need. And we're also, paying attention to the preferences to see which community is going to be better suited for them, in addition to thinking about their financial situation. Is long-term care insurance a factor? Are they paying privately? Will they need to potentially access state-funded benefits at some point through Medicaid? All of those are variables that we're looking at. I think a really important distinction to make, too, in the search for communities is that aging life care managers are not taking fees from any communities that we place a person at. So I think that's really important. We work for the client who is looking, and so it's our job to tell you everything that we know about the community and to really make a recommendation that's focused on you. We're not getting any fees or kickbacks from the communities at all. So it really does preserve our ability to be very objective and to really focus at one client on a time at a time and what it is that they're looking for and what we think is going to be the best match.
That's great. Teresa and Mindy?
Yeah, I would second everything that Jennifer just said. I mean, it seems to always kind of come down to like, what does the person want? But then also, what do they need in terms of care and what can they afford long term and sustainably? So we're really taking a hard look at all of those things, but also, like Jennifer said, getting to know the clients and, really trying to understand like the nuances of them as a person and also the nuances of the communities that we're aware of to know like where they might really succeed the best in comparison to other places that might have big names or lots of advertising or lots of opportunity to kind of woo people on a tour. But we really get to know some of these organizations some of the communities that don't have big budgets, but still provide fantastic care and have done so consistently for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's already been stated. We're in these communities with our clients, and so we really kind of understand the nuances of each of the communities, what they offer. Is the client a little more introverted? Do they need a quieter setting? Do they need an 8-bed? I mean, we're able to really look at the person and what they need, but also with our kind of intimate knowledge of these communities, be able to make suggestions that we really feel are going to be the best fit and provide longevity. Because the one thing we don't want is, to move and then move again because it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, and let me add a couple of things here for Michelle, or yeah, for Michelle. It sounds like you're in the middle of this. Couple of things to think about. Hiring a care manager is awesome. Okay. The other thing is when you're looking at these communities, it's really easy to get starstruck by the beautiful buildings and all the things like that. But try to focus on connecting your loved one to some other residents that they may have something in common with. Many times that can be a game changer because if mom's resistant going to a place like this, but she's all alone at home, and now you see she's got a buddy that likes to collect Beanie Babies too. That can open her eyes up. And on that note, I've been helping a friend of the family who's solo, who had to spend some time in assisted living. And what I found was it was kind of like being first day at school. Having a wingman, uh, like a care manager or a loved one that can help break the ice and help make introductions and go down and start participating in activities together with them can really make that transition a little bit easier. And that's one of the main reasons I like folks to move in with a care manager to get acclimated. Let's see. and Betty's following up, are aging life care managers able to advise about alternative housing like co-housing or multi-generational housing? Absolutely. But have any of you had any, and also you all, I mean, we're talking about housing, but it's also helping make people's homes safe and accessible uh, as
Yeah,
well.
Yeah,
I,
I'll go for
I would say
it.
we're probably all about to say the same thing, that in the same context of moving to a community where you're kind of looking at like the social aspect, the care aspect, and financial aspect, we do the same thing when looking at someone's home and whether, modifications to the home would be needed. We can help to get them connected to contractors if big modifications are needed, or smaller handymen if they need just little things. But then also talking through, like, as someone's aging progresses and they're needing more help, how much can family really do? And if they need to hire care, what will that look like financially? Because the cost of hiring a caregiver can, in some regions, be exorbitant. So, again, just kind of looking at the sustainability of what families are about to partake in, or individuals are about to partake in, is a big part of what we're looking at. But definitely, we do that quite a bit.
All right. Okay. We've got lots of Teresa, I know you've got some things that you want to share, but I love making our customers satisfied here and addressing comments as they come in if possible. But it also sends us down. So let's see. Oh, Michelle works in a community and she's really uh or Melinda works in a community and she loves having care managers attached to the clients when they come in. And folks, if you're working with a community and you feel like well, why are you working with an aging life care manager? I would view that as sort of a yellow flag. I mean, that's an opportunity where I would invite your care manager in to talk with the executive director and address that because what I've seen is you do nothing but enhance the lifestyle of the residents living in communities. So glad to see Melinda loves that. Um, okay. Um, Now, this is good. Leslie says, do your facilities incorporate therapists like OT, PT, speech language, and integration process? Now, Leslie, these are professionals that work in a variety of settings, who you have now, aging life care managers, but they might be working with different communities that may or may not have therapists. But talk about how you can help your clients coordinate therapy and therapy appointments, whether they're in a community or outside of the community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that the client has got everything that they need, no matter what environment they're in. So whether they're at home, or if they are in an independent 55 plus community or assisted living, wherever they're at, we want to make sure that they have all of the services that they need. And if that requires that we're coordinating with outside providers to make that happen, then that's what we will do. Knowing what their budget is, what their insurance covers, understanding how the system works and what those providers, can bring in terms of benefit for our client.
And really advocating for them too with the medical professionals they're seeing, because doctors see clients for a blip, right? And they don't always have the full picture of what's really happening outside of the office. And so our care managers go with clients to doctor's appointments to make sure that the doctors have a clear picture of what's going on and to say, hey, we've noticed their gait is a little unstable. Can we get orders for physical therapy? We've noticed some coughing with eating. Can we get orders for speech therapy? And so, really working with the medical professionals that are already in place to also get, any auxiliary services and that might be needed, whether that's through home health or, within their community that they're living in, or, outpatient if needed as well.
And this, Mindy, what you said just ties in exactly to Ed's question. He says, my mother's health is pretty good except for her knees. This limits her doctor's appointments and makes trips hard. Right now, she uses a walker. Do you have nurses and doctors who can make home visits? But also, you can accompany mom and help if she has an outside appointment, many care management practices will take her to those appointments and be patiently help her get in and out of the car and everything, correct?
Yes. And I mean, as far as home visiting doctors, I think it depends on the area. I can
Yeah.
say in our area, we have a variety of options for that. But you know, if that's not what is wanted, then yes, we will provide the transportation. We will facilitate the appointments. We can schedule the appointments, schedule the follow-up, schedule the testing, and be there through the whole process.
Cool. Okay. I think we got through most of them. We'll get back to keep them coming, folks. We'll jump on them again. But I wanted to go to Teresa because Teresa, uh, share with us some insights and some things that are on your mind these days in your practice.
Yeah, so lately we've been dealing with a lot of clients who have sort of complex family dynamics or chosen family dynamics. So even solo agers where their support group are friends, neighbors, there's always dynamics involved. And so it's just sometimes helpful for people to know that we deal with complexities of relationships on a daily basis. And we try our best. There's no judgment there because at the end of the day, we're really trying to focus on what the goal is of the overall big picture for the client. And if that's trying to maintain a certain quality of life or improve quality of life, we know how to navigate conversations within families, again, within friend groups, whatever it may be. Within whoever is involved really to just help people move forward through the challenges that they're navigating because in the context of people's lifelong relationships things can get pretty messy sometimes, and sometimes I think people come to us and they're either feeling embarrassed or unsure, like, can you really help me? But we're able to work through a lot of different challenges like that.
And this is a good time to reiterate who really is the client. I mean, oftentimes I think what creates tension sometimes in families is uh sibling one wants this, next door neighbor thinks this, brother thinks this, and no matter who's paying the bill, who's the client.
But at the end of the day, the client is the person that's needing the care.
Mhm.
But I think all care managers really do try to focus on it. As long as we have permission to speak to different individuals, we can really we have flexibility to spend time to talk through and to really treat everyone else as a core part of the team so that we can try to really get to the root of what's needing to get done.
Hmm. I love it. All right. No, this is one of the best reasons to bring a care manager in is to help navigate the communication issues and tension that can oftentimes exist. So I love it. All right. Okay, so we're going to get back to some of the questions, but before that, I want to give Jennifer the opportunity to share some perspective. What are you thinking about these days, Jennifer?
Yeah, well, we're kind of getting ready for the holidays. It's hard to believe that it's already November and Thanksgiving will be here before we know it. And, this is a time where we get a lot of calls from concerned family members. They've gone home to see aging parents or been able to really spend some quality time with them. And they've started to maybe notice some things that are concerning. And so a lot of what we're doing is kind of preparing families either for, things to start talking to family members about as they're home visiting aging parents, or even if they are kind of coming home and struggling with I'm a long distance adult child, how do I kind of process what I've seen and some of the concerns that I've had, and kind of walking them through how aging life care managers can be a resource for them. I'm going to kind of also flip that in reverse and say that for the older adult, the holidays are also a great time to talk to family members about what your goals for aging are. And I feel like that's a really important, we should always be encouraging and empowering people as they age to feel very open and free to speak with families about what their preferences are and what they envision their later years to be. And, I think some people avoid the conversation because they perceive that there might be conflict. For some people, there might be, but I think it's an important tool for sharing, to simply have those conversations. And sometimes the holidays can be a good time to kind of launch that. But we do get a lot of calls from families, that see new concerns over the holidays, and we want to try to jump in as quickly as possible. If the older adult is in our area, and an adult child from California has come in for Thanksgiving, and she calls and she says, "Gosh, mom's just got a lot more mail piled up, and I was overwhelmed with trying to figure out, how to help her." We like those calls because that's early, that's before, like Mindy was talking about, that's before it's a 3 alarm fire. And so we want to get in and plug in those resources as soon as family sees that things are beginning to change, instead of waiting until it's an emergency.
And, another thing that actually me and my family were prepared for is that sometimes you might see some warning signs and you do your best to sort of, hey, I'd love to introduce you to somebody, or we should hire a care manager or another service, and there's resistance. But one of the things, we were fully prepared to hire the aging life care manager just for ourselves, to coach us as family members, and hopefully someday in the future, mom and dad would be receptive. We got lucky, and things moved a little bit better. But the holidays could be a great opportunity to engage in conversations with the care manager as family members.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Um, okay, let me jump back to some of these questions here because they're coming in. Let's see. Um, Joe Carroll says, how long does the care manager stay with you after they have set you up with all that you need? Talk about the different terms of engagement that you've had with some of your clients. I'm sure there's very short-term engagements and longer term. Maybe give a few examples of those.
Yeah, that's up to the client. That's what we always say. It's up to you. Some people, they engage aging life care managers just for the transition, and for the knowledge and assistance through that process. Other people, they get us in long before that and keep us in long after. I mean, we have, I'm sure, Teresa and Jennifer would agree. I mean, we have people who are at home. We have people in independent living, in assisted living, in memory care, in skilled nursing. And we have clients that we stay with through end of life. So
I love it. Um, let's Oh, any other thoughts on that? We got some more questions. This is a good one here from Helen. She says, been living in a continuing care community for over 12 years. I believe it's responsible for my longevity, and the best part is ability for socialization. And folks, and I know that you all have seen this. Most people are pretty hesitant about making a move. There's a lot of fear, and but most people that ultimately make that transition are just like Helen. They're sort of like, this was a good move, and sometimes they say, I wish I had done it a lot earlier.
I think a lot of people really benefit from the socialization aspect, because moving into a community where all you have to do is walk out of your door to interact with someone can make such a huge impact when you are aging and perhaps starting to experience mobility issues, and it's getting harder to go out and do yard work or things like that. And just the ease of being able to walk out your door and interact with people and have meaningful interactions with new friends. And Helen's saying she's been there for 12 years. Those are now old friends that she's hopefully, interacting with on a daily basis.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Al has a really good question related to senior living communities. I tell you, this is we usually don't have this theme. It's usually aging in place, but I really like this. And he says, how long a duration or contract or lease should you sign with a community? how can care managers help a resident break a lease of contract if they don't like being in that community or facility? Have you ever had experiences like this or discussions like this with any of your clients?
Yeah, most I think are 30-day contracts unless you're moving to, CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Communities. Sometimes they're called life care communities where you're buying in. It's kind of a different beast, but for the most part, we see for the most part 30-day requirements to let someone know that you're needing to move out. And then, of course, at least in our area, we're in the DC metro area, there are kind of laws around if someone has a medical need and needs to move for that reason, you can break any longer standing lease. But again, if you've bought in to a continuing care retirement community, then there's other obligations related to the contract you've signed that you should be aware of.
But I tell you, and I'm gonna, while we're chatting, I'm gonna try, there's there's an article that I'm gonna share. I just interviewed somebody who moved to a continuing care community in the western part of the United States and realized it was not for her. And she got out of her contract and
Yes.
it wasn't as difficult as one would imagine. I think sometimes we sort of feel like, oh gosh, I got to move in here, and it's actually a shorter term lease than a traditional multifamily apartment, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and each community usually has even individualized terms in terms of your buy-in, in terms of how much you get back if you were to leave or pass away. And so, yeah, it's kind of the individuality of your contract is really important in those situations.
And all right, this is a good one. Ashley is, are or do aging life care managers ever appointed to roles such as power of attorney for healthcare or finance? I know different practices are obviously different, but I'd love for y'all to comment on that.
I can speak for ElderTree at least. So we will never do, like, we will never be a power of attorney for anybody. We do healthcare proxies for solo agers or even couples who have, who have nobody else that they trust. When it comes to the financial aspect, if they don't have somebody, we will refer them to an elder law attorney for that. But we do act as healthcare proxies for some of our clients.
Yeah, it's important that everyone know that the Aging Life Care Association has a pretty strong code of ethics and standards of practice that we abide by. So people that are members of our organization are actually not supposed to be serving as financial power of attorney or ever be in possession of client funds for any reason. But yeah, it's on a case by case basis or practice whether or not any given business owner decides to serve as healthcare power of attorney. In our company, we serve as healthcare power of attorney, and we also can be appointed through the court system as guardian of the person for some individuals, which is a similar role.
And we're in a very similar situation as Jennifer and Mindy here, that as long as someone has gone through our intake process and talked with a member of our leadership team, and we've all agreed that we're going to work with them to be their healthcare agent, we can work with their attorney to be named in their documents. We have a kind of newer formalized process for that to just make sure that it long-standing and sustainably will be something that we will be able to continue to help them with down, decades to come. Because some of the people that come to us for this are much younger. And the other thing that's, I think, helpful to know is that for the financial piece, which again, we can't do, which Jennifer just said, I think all care managers have a lot of relationships with attorneys or other individuals that can serve that role. So we can give referrals for services that do that. And then in Maryland, in particular, there's kind of this different landscape for guardianship. And so there's really not a need for care managers in our area to become guardians in any way, but we work with a lot of attorneys who become court appointed guardians or have taken that role on. We
Yeah,
also I think it's important to say we can often work with someone who maybe is a reluctant POA. So maybe they have been named and they don't really want to be doing the boots on the ground stuff. We can at their direction, be doing the boots on the ground work, reporting back to them. And at the end of the day, they are making the decisions, which is their role, but they're not having to be involved in the day-to-day stuff. A care manager can serve that role.
A lot of people feel better with that kind of partnership because they don't feel like they're serving in the capacity of a power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney in a vacuum. You know, they can bounce ideas off of us and get validation that the decision that they're about to make for their loved one is the right one, and that sort of thing. And that's really critical. You do sometimes have people stepping into those roles that don't have as much familiarity with the client, you know, as we would normally like. And this is another topic for another day, but these things are really critical to figure out too for the people that are solo agers. And you know, we're really seeing a big uptick. I'm sure that Teresa and Mindy are too, and the number of people that increasingly have to rely on professional services because they don't have kind of the traditional that we had decades ago family makeup where you have, you know, people automatically that you can appoint as decision makers. There's a lot of things that are changing about that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I counsel folks on is if you're at a loss for your health and financial proxies, start with the healthcare proxy, start with an aging life care manager, because if you're armed with that and somebody who's advocating for you and knows your desires, it makes it a lot easier for somebody to who would be responsible for the finance. And that's where a lot of the attorneys are nervous to do this because they don't want to be in the business of choosing a memory care community or evaluating your health or determining that. So that's a great strategy. Um, okay. Okay, so Lisa says, my child is a reluctant power of attorney 3,000 miles away. How would I know which care managers in Metro Boston could help him? Um, okay, you, okay, so Lisa, the care manager, in my opinion, and let's brainstorm this one, workshop this one here. If if you in general would want the care manager to be located near the client, so if, if Lisa, if you're in Los Angeles and your son is in Boston, I would want the care manager to be in Los Angeles to get to know you, know your needs, and now that care manager can communicate with your son in Boston about, I've evaluated your mom. She's been diagnosed with X. My recommendation for quality of life and health would be that she goes here, and then interacting with him as a financial power of attorney. Does that sound okay to you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you put our email addresses in the chat. If you know, if anybody's looking for a specific area, we're happy, you know, the three of us to pull somebody up in their directory and make a warm
Yep.
introduction with somebody if that helps get the
And
conversation
that's one
started.
of the best things. They have regional and national conferences where they get to know care managers all over the country. And so a lot of times it's like, oh, I got a friend in Boston or in LA, and at least you get started. It's a good idea, even if you get a strong recommendation for a care manager, is talk to a couple of others just to
Mhm.
get the vibe on the different personalities and different types of practice. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. And Lisa says, I'm in Boston, many GCMs. Should I call all of them? It's like, yeah, I would that on the phone for a long time. I would start with two or three and see what kind of vibe you've got. And if you don't connect with any of those, then keep on going down the list.
And something
Okay.
else that I think is like worth thinking about it on an individual basis is like, do I want a big team like one of our three teams where, you know, the way we work is we have such a big team, we make sure that every client has a backup and we're working as a team. So it might not always be the same care manager working with your mom or whoever, but the way we do that helps because if someone has a family emergency or goes on vacation, there's always someone that knows your situation. But there are solo practitioners as well. And in that case, you're going to have the same person every single time. And so that can also help you narrow down your search as you're looking at the different options on the website.
I love it. Okay, let's see. We've got somebody that is, and this is a really good question, and I'm going to do my best to synthesize it. But we're talking about cognitive load. Asking so many questions places anxiety in older adults, but professionals have to ask questions to get their plans organized. But they're talking about communicating with somebody on all these questions. You know, you got to go to a doctor's appointment and they're asking you questions, this, that, and the other, creates anxiety, confusion, this, that, and the other. Any sort of thoughts or insights on or tips that you all use to kind of help people get through those difficult situations where they just feel like they've got cognitive overload?
Yeah, one of the tips that we use, and this is particularly helpful if you're dealing with somebody that has some word finding difficulty with mild cognitive impairment, is that we try to eliminate open-ended questions. You know, so saying to somebody, "What would you like for lunch?" forces them to have to come up with the words for what they want for lunch, which can be frustrating for somebody that's dealing with some cognitive changes. And so that's kind of the cognitive load that she's referring to, is your brain is working, you know, feverishly to try to get to that word. Whereas if you say, "Would you like a sandwich or would you like a cup of soup?" You've given two choices that you know that they both, you know, they like both of them, but you've eliminated the need for their brain to search for the words. And so, and you've still given them the ability to choose for themselves and to make their own decision. So, you know, if you think about that, you can extrapolate out that same kind of practice to other things. You can't use it all the time, but it's something that's handy if you eliminate kind of the open-ended, where somebody's really having to kind of tether themselves to an abstract question that you might have asked, or something that's a little bit harder for folks.
Yeah, and a lot of times when we're like, say, doctor's appointment, for instance, you know, we're with somebody there, it can be very overwhelming. And so one of the things that we are a bit of a buffer as a care manager, we can buffer some of it. We are able to sometimes reword the question in a way that we know that our client is going to have an easier time understanding or answering that question. And so sometimes we're the buffer for the overload to, you know, to take some of that pressure off of the client in those moments.
Yeah, and I know that that was one thing that my wife discovered this past week when she accompanied her parents to a doctor's appointment, was that holy cow, they should not be going to doctor's appointments on their own because they've got some hearing loss. It's stressful. They're and just having a third party that can digest everything and take notes and is fantastic. And then share that with the network, whatever that network looks like. Um, Betty says, health and financial proxies are my biggest planning gap as a solo ager with no close family. Betty, I'm not sure if you saw it, but we did a discussion last week spotlighting the unique needs of child-free solo agers. I dropped it into chat, and there's a new product out there called the Child-Free Trust. I'm not endorsing the product, but the conversation that we had around that product was really interesting. And and having an aging life care manager combined with a creative trust like that was something that was recommended on that discussion. So tune into that. Let's see. Oh, it only took to an hour. We're almost done with our discussion. And Ashley says, is there a general cost for an aging life care manager? Is there some benchmark that we should be aware of, or is it highly variable? I've heard this answered a million different ways. If any of y'all would like to answer Ashley's question about cost.
I'm happy to take it on. And so regionally, there are some pretty big differences. So in like the DC metro area, it's likely higher. New York City, for example, is even higher. Other places likely lower, but we all bill on an hourly basis. And so like generally, I think I could say the range within like the nation is probably between $150 to $250 an hour. And again, depends on the region, depends on the company. But because of the way we're structured, we're able to do things in a way that kind of fits family budgetary needs. So if a 1 hour consult would be best, we can really zero in on a lot of topics in that 1 hour, knock a bunch of things out, give you recommendations, and you can kind of go forth with those recommendations and put them in place. Sometimes at that point, families will decide to hire us because they decide that it's worth the ongoing money and expense to have the extra support to implement some of those recommendations. But then obviously that's a really big difference from the kinds of families that might hire us, or individuals that might hire us where they're having us visit once a week, 2 times a week for their entire lifespan, for the rest of their lives. And so, it can add up when, our hourly rate is what it is. Also, we all are unfortunately unable to accept healthcare insurance. So long-term care insurance might cover some of our services, but it might, and only under certain circumstances with certain policies. And so, unfortunately, we're in a capitalist society. We have to make money to be able to provide the service to support our staff. But so most regions kind of pick a rate, and then a lot of the companies in the regions will kind of be around the same rate, give or take maybe $20 or so an hour.
Yeah. And there's some innovative programs, like in Fairfax County, Virginia, there's a program called ElderLink that is a care management plan run by the government. And so in all regions, contact your area agency on aging if you are helping somebody that might have limited income or might qualify for subsidies, and you might get lucky in that there's some care management there.
I would also add, we've seen occasionally, like in our area, the DC metro area, like there's some benefits programs with certain workplaces where they'll pay for care management. Who knows how that got set up, but some genius, decades ago understood what care management was, and they set up these programs. And some churches will cover a limited amount of services as well. And so, it really just depends on the individual area.
All right, let's see. I know we're at about an hour, but let me just go through and try to run through some of these questions as well as I can. And David, to your question, this is recorded. Go to proaging.com later this afternoon. It'll be up there with all the chat and all the resources and contact info. And let's see. Cheryl she's bringing up an example, a couple of things where they're caring for somebody at a distance and they need support as well, she and her husband. I mean, this is going to be a much more common issue out there where parent and child need care and support. Have you all encountered many clients in that situation?
Yes. It was for the easy, simple answer. Yes. We sometimes will have even a partner, a spouse, who will get our assistance for their spouse, and then later on engage us for themselves. And then we have some clients who we may have worked or are still working with their mother or father, and now are also assisting them through wherever they are in their journey.
Okay. And then there's a question on how to plan and budget for care managers. What I would say to that, because I've hosted so many of these discussions, is the first thing to do is you don't have to pay anything for the initial consultation. So take the time and call 2 or 3. If you connect with one, then sit down and talk about what your goals are, what you think your needs are. And what I've found is that most aging life practices are very creative. Is that if somebody's on a limited budget, it might be that they're coaching you more than actually doing something with you. Whereas if you really want one-on-one support. You kind of set, okay, I can afford this many hours, and this is what we're gonna stick to and see how it works. Does that sound good to y'all?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think it's fair to say like we're all living very similar lives to our clients. And so we really understand when people are wanting to be on a budget and not, you know, let costs get out of control. And so that creativity, I think, is really born out of just understanding deeply like what our clients are going through financially and their concerns financially.
And okay, why don't we make Al's question the last one, and then folks, that you know, we don't have one of these scheduled for December, but next year we'll probably have them monthly again. But Al is talking about major considerations for choosing a care manager. It seems like there should be an accreditation, a rating system like Medicare. Well, Al, the first thing is you, all care managers, people that are the only people that can call themselves are aging life care members, are members of the Aging Life Care Association. And there's a certification and professional conduct that goes along with that, which I'm going to drop that into chat. Um, and anything that you'd all like to add? I've got Al, I've also got an article that we have on questions that you could ask when you're interviewing care managers. I'll drop that into chat too. But any thoughts on the ratings, certifications, and all that that you'd like to share?
Yeah, no, I think that is the best advice is to be sure that you're using a member of the Aging Life Care Association. You know, we've gone through an application process. We are certified. You can see what has been required of us, you know, to get through different levels of membership. And we have a very strong code of ethics and standards of practice for a reason. It's our, you know, professional code of conduct. And it separates us really from a lot of the other, you know, professions that are out there in the industry. So that's the best resources to make sure you're always using someone who's a member.
Yeah, and I think the biggest confusion, and Jennifer sort of alluded to this, that there may be professionals that are out there that sound like they're doing what an aging life care manager is doing, but um, they're 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 not part of the association, and perhaps the way that they're being compensated is a little bit different, you know, being compensated on the end of the providers as opposed to you are paying them to make objective decisions for you. So,
Exactly.
all right. Whew, I'm wiped out. This was a great discussion. I all three of you are tremendous resources, but I'm always in awe of the questions that come in from our community. They really fuel some interesting dialogue. So
Absolutely. Thank
uh
you. This has been great.
yeah, thank you all. And like I said, I will work to get this up on at proaging.com as quickly as possible. And then we'll see y'all at the next one.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.